Okay, so today we're going to begin actually identifying several plants around us using our dichotomous keys, and hopefully you can make some observations for your iNaturalist Bingo project. The iNaturalist Bingo project is one in which you need to make observations with photos that are good enough to identify that plant. So let's go over this one more time. What kind of photos do you need to take to identify a plant? What makes a good photo? You guys have read two different things on this. Let's talk about it.
In focus.
In focus. All right. It's so frustrating. I volunteer my time on iNaturalist as an identifier. And when you have a plant that's not in focus, it's done. You can't do anything with it, right? So in focus is number one. What else?
Try to highlight, kind of morphological features if you can.
Okay, highlight morphological features of the plant. In particular, fruiting and flowering characters. Okay? You always want to include those in your repertoire, in your collection of photos for your observation. What else?
Cropped. Cropped.
Cropped. Okay, you can make it cropped. So talking about focus, another thing is the depth of field in your photos. If it's possible for you to get a close-up of a plant where the plant is in focus but the background is not, that's helpful, right? Because it helps the viewer hone in the fact that that's what you're looking at. Okay, what else? The other thing that's really frustrating on iNaturalist is when someone takes a picture like of this right here. Here's an observation. How many species are in that? Right, there's at least 6 species I can see right now in that group of trees. We don't know which one they're intending to observe, right? So we can't make an identification. So we need to have it scoped. So we want to have a picture of the entire plant. We want to have a picture closer up, closer up, closer up, fruiting characters. Macro shots. I think that your reading talked about how to take a picture with your loop and your phone. Is that true? Do you recall that? Uh-oh, you guys are falling asleep on me. Okay, so I didn't purchase it. The department has purchased these little tiny lenses on a rubber band that can fit any phone camera. You just put that little lens up to your camera phone and just strap it around your phone. And all of a sudden you have the ability to take macro photos. For those of you who have, like my phone, this is an iPhone 11, and it has 3 lenses. You can see that. The 3 different lenses enable me to take wide angle, bigger, and then macro. One of these enables pretty close macro, but we're not talking about, like if I have a flower and I want to take the entire flower, I can surely do that with my iPhone, right? But I might not be able to take a picture of just the stamens. What if I want to show the anthers because they're a unique shape? That's when you're going to strap on your little macro lens, and then it'll get right in there. It'll be able to get inside that flower. Okay, so a collection of those different features will help people identify that plant, including yourself. Okay. Any other thoughts or thoughts on photography for identification?
It mentioned having a background that is like uniform.
Okay, good. So if you're collecting a plant and you've taken a snippet of it, and even if you're not collecting the plant, and we're dealing with this big tree over here, and I want to focus on that fruit, that little berry, when I'm out collecting for real, I carry around with me a piece of black velvet. And I can just lay that piece down and put the leaf on it and take amazing pictures that are always in focus. There's no shadow effects. You want to mitigate shadow effects, by the way. It's always better to take pictures in the shade than in the sun because you don't have the changing. You can look at these trees over here and you can see parts of it are in shadow, parts of it are in sun. That will affect your photo too. But there are times when you just can't do all that, right? But think about that composition of your photos, particularly towards identification. Okay, so that's a good point. And if you don't have a piece of cloth with you, what might you have? Well, you could put the little piece of fruit right here on your leg, on your pair of pants, and take it up like that. You can put it on this picnic table. You can put it on your notebook. Right? Anything to take away that incredibly diverse background beyond it that lets the viewer really see that thing for itself is useful. Okay. Any other comments, thoughts, observations? Okay, so when I'm looking at your observations in iNaturalist, I will be looking for a spectrum of photos for your observation that enable me to identify that plant. If your photos are not good enough to identify that plant, you're going to be docked points because we can't identify it. So that's something that we need to pay particular attention to when we're doing digital observations, is that photography. Okay, I'm trying to think if I've missed anything. I would encourage you guys to try out, if you brought your loops today, to try, make one observation, trying out putting the loop up to your phone, seeing how you can make a picture with that. I haven't actually tried it myself, but I will today if I can. Question?
So take like this oak tree over here. How many photos minimum do you think you would need to be able to properly identify it?
I would say at least 3. Okay, one of the entire plant, one of including some leaves and some reproductive characters, and maybe one of the reproductive character as a minimum. In addition, remember you're going to want to involve your ID token for this particular project. If you have it, you guys, I don't know if you brought your dissecting kits, but inside that dissecting kit should be a ruler. You also have a ruler in the back of your yellow book. If you want to just take a sprig of that plant and put it on there with a ruler, that is so helpful. Because a lot of the characters that you need to identify a plant are based on measurements. This flower is 10 millimeters. Yeah, in the back of your woody plants is a ruler as well. So you can open that up and put that thing on there and put it next to that ruler. It's so helpful. Okay? Yeah, any other questions?
So I was struggling to add stuff to iNaturalist project.
Okay.
So when I open it up, there's only like one that you can actually select, and the others say that they're added automatically. Does anybody
Yeah.
know more?
I don't have that problem.
I had to do it on the computer. It works easy on the computer, but not on the
It's a lot easier that is incorrectly identified. I will make note of that. And frankly, you won't get points for it. So if it happens that you make an observation and it goes into the bingo project and you didn't know about it until later, you need to make sure that you know that that's truly identified. Remember that the citizens who are identifying these plants are not always right. Okay? And so it behooves you to make certain of your identifications. Besides, you need to learn them by sight because they will be on an exam. I will give you a little sprig and say, what is this? And you have to tell me what that is. Okay? Question?
Can they change ours? So let's say we identify it correctly and they change it.
They can.
Mm-hmm.
They can. And sometimes that happens. But the beauty of iNaturalist as a citizen science platform is that it takes an observation and it will classify it by unidentified, needs ID, and research grade. Research grade is where the majority of people who have commented on the identification of that plant agree that it is that thing. Okay, but wars happen on iNaturalist because in botany, for example, I just wrote a treatment for the flora of North America on the genus Pediamellum. One of the species, there happens to be a botanist at BYU who is what we call a splitter, and I am more of a lumper. That means some people classify species and they do it on very fine characters, whereas another person might disagree and think that variation is a natural inclusion within a species description. And so we might disagree on the taxonomic ID of that plant. And go back and forth. I've seen it on iNaturalist. No, this is this. No, it's this. No, it's this. No, it's this. And there's like 20 identifications, and there's half and half of one versus the other because there are natural disagreements among botanists. So you need to kind of take tabs on your observations, especially if you haven't identified them, and see how that, when you open iNaturalist on the computer, there at the very top right is a little call-out box that will turn red when people have made comments on your observations. And so whenever I open iNaturalist, that's the first thing I do is go look at my list of comments to see who has commented on my observations. And that you can check on them and learn what did other people think this was. And you may learn that you identified it wrongly, right? And then you might go in and rekey that out with your key to see where you made your mistake. okay? All right, any comments, questions? Okay, so I mentioned that I have a young man, Chandler Snow, who is taking this class in a different state. Hi, Chandler. The way that he's going to be doing this bingo project, because he's not here in Utah to observe these plants, he's creating flashcards for them. And I made a template last night that I thought might behoove you guys as well. If you wanted to create flashcards for yourself and you want that template, let me know. And it's in PowerPoint. It involves photos. Like, for example, you could use the ones that you took and put them into there. And then on the other second half of the slide are written out key aspects that you need to memorize and hints to remember what that is, and a little bit of trivia about uses. And then when you've compiled your list of 65 plants or whatever, you've saved your PowerPoint, you can actually randomize the slides when you open it up and look at the slide, click, and it will give you the answer. So it's kind of like a testing ability. If you want that and you want to put some time into that, you let me know. Who here might want that? By raise of hands. Okay, I'll post it in the, I don't know if there's a study helps module or the plant resources module, but I'll post it in the plant resources module and you guys can download it, that template, and kind of use it as a way to study it for yourself, okay? You can also use iNaturalist as a way to study. I would strongly encourage you to do that. Okay, any other questions? Okay,